questionable circumstances right now. John Harwood, thank you. And joining me now to discuss all of this, Bill Kristol, Director of Defending Democracy Together, and Shan, CNN legal analyst and former counsel to Attorney General Janet Reno. Welcome to both of you. Shan, let me begin with you. You hear the reporting that President Trump had a general idea of what Bill Barr would say in this interview with ABC News yesterday. And the president's spokesperson quick to come out saying that, hey, the president has no issue with what Barr has said, notwithstanding that he always has issues anytime anyone else speaks out. What is your take on what's going on here?
Well, the president's statement, he always wants to point out that he has the right to do it. And, simply might does not make right. I mean, theoretically, he has the power to do that, but he shouldn't, and no one else has done that. When I was at the Justice Department, we made an enormous effort to have those boundaries between the White House and even the political appointees very clear from decisions made by the career prosecutors. And his suggestion that that's just up to his discretion is simply wrong. And frankly, Bill Barr, up until this point, has not exactly convinced anyone that he is the guardrail for this president. So his recent comments in the interview I find a little bit suspicious.
So if you, and maybe you're still talking to friends and former colleagues within the DOJ, if the objective of Bill Barr was to come out yesterday and calm concerns that may be going on within the DOJ, given that there had been so many resignations and concerns internally, did he achieve that?
I don't think he did. I think that message was his communication to the president in the way that the president communicates best, which is through TV. There's a lot of discomfort, particularly at the U.S. Attorney's Office, where Jesse Liu, who I consider a friend, had served, and I think they're very uncomfortable with this. And it's late in the day for the Attorney General to be reassuring his troops at the Justice Department, very late in the day, like 4 a.m. I mean, his actions speak far louder than this one statement.
Yeah, and if there wasn't all of this other news coming at us, I think the Jesse Liu story in and of itself is a huge headline that we should be talking about some more, so I'm glad that you pointed her out. Bill, let me turn to you, because this isn't the Attorney General acknowledging that his actions are questionable. It's just him saying that he wished the president would let him do it quietly. Is that also your take?
Yeah, pretty much. And look, the president responded this morning. He has the absolute right to direct or intervene into criminal investigation. I don't think that's true. It may be that he can't be legally punished for trying to do that, as I would have been when I worked in the White House. We had incredibly clear and strict guidelines about even passing on information to the Justice Department that someone might have given in good faith about something that would have possibly involved a criminal investigation, let alone calling over there and saying, please investigate my political opponents. Now, the president obviously isn't subject in quite the same way to the rule of law as normal White House staff or normal staff elsewhere in the federal government, but he is subject to oversight and to impeachment possibly for that. And so what does Bill Barr think? I mean, the president has now left it that he has an absolute right, though he claims he hasn't done it, though he's done it publicly. He's urged investigations of all kinds of people, but maybe he hasn't privately told Barr, go after this person. He's just said it publicly and tweeted it and said it at rallies. Even so, what does Bill Barr think about that? Would Bill Barr say no if the president said, do this? The president has now said he has a right to do it. Does Bill Barr agree that the president has a right to do it?
And that's something that Michael Cohen, even when he testified, that he said the president doesn't come out and just say do it, but it's oftentimes implied, right? And so maybe that's what's transpiring via these tweets. Shan,
but it's such a breach. Instead, made this point, and Shan made this point. It's such a breach of the really pretty fundamental norms of the U.S. government that criminal prosecutions are not to be ordered for political reasons by the White House. That is really not something we want to even theoretically say, oh, sure, the president could do it. Maybe he just hasn't done it yet, and maybe Bill Barr is a little uncomfortable when the president talks too much about it. That is not an adequate response to the situation we're in.
No, that's important, and norms are in place for a reason, and they're constantly broken. Shan, on that note, we've just concluded a months-long impeachment trial that was all about the president conducting a quid pro quo during a private phone conversation. Well, just yesterday, he publicly announced a quid pro quo, I would read it as such, related to the state of New York and his administration's decision to stop the state's use of a trusted traveler program that speeds up border crossings into New York. Here's exactly what he tweeted. I want to read it to you. He said, I'm seeing Governor Cuomo today at the White House. He must understand that national security far exceeds politics. New York must stop all of its unnecessary lawsuits and harassment, start cleaning itself up, and lowering taxes. This is exactly what impeachment managers warned would happen if he was acquitted legally. Would this be another example, in your opinion, of abuse of power?
No question it would be an abuse of power. That's written all over it. In terms of what exact criminal hook you might find, you'd have to analyze that a little bit deeper than that. But as far as abuse of power goes, it's classic. I mean, he's basically telling the state that he's going to punish them unless they do what he says, dropping certain, what he calls presidential harassment type of lawsuits. So abuse of power is written all over that, I think.
And I think, once again, it's just stunning that this comes a week after he was acquitted for what began as a quid pro quo phone conversation. Bill, you wrote an interesting piece that I want to talk about now as we conclude this conversation. You know, we've heard from General Kelly yesterday speaking in defense of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and really ridiculing the president. You say that the public rebuke is exactly what's needed for more administration officials. What impact would that have at this stage in the game?
Well, 2 points just on the previous point, just to close that. If Governor Cuomo, in my opinion, the governor of New York, ordered the Attorney General to drop a properly constituted criminal investigation because he had some policy issue he wanted to resolve with the president, that would be an abuse of power. So the president is calling on the governor to abuse his power by
And the
intervening
Attorney
in a criminal
General, by the way,
investigation.
has tweeted, and she said, this is not up to the governor of New York, this is me.
Quite appropriately. So I mean, this is where you do see the effects of Trump. There's a kind of, there's a knock-on effect where his abuse of power leads to others being encouraged to do so or asked to do so by him. Look, I think there are many people who served in this administration. Some of them did so for good, honorable motives. They thought they could prevent some bad things from happening, and some of them did. They need to speak out now. John Kelly was the tip of that iceberg, but there's so many others, and they owe it to the American public. We're going into an extremely important election. We need to know what they saw in there. They don't have to reveal obviously privileged conversations or private conversations in the Oval Office, but we need to get a sense of their judgment. And whether it's Jim Mattis or former people at the Justice Department, the former number 3, people who resigned, left, Rosenstein, they're all kind of keeping quiet, and as if somehow that's a more appropriate way to behave. And there, in normal times, yes, you shouldn't leave the administration and do a tell-all, but these are not normal times. And I think we need to know, does Rod Rosenstein, the former number 2 at Justice, have confidence that this president of the United States will see that the rule of law is enforced? Does Jim Mattis have confidence that the president will not intervene inappropriately in military justice and also make rash and foolish military decisions? That's kind of important for the American public to know, and there's no legal or political or other reason why these people shouldn't give us their judgment.
Well, we'll see if they heed your advice. Bill Kristol and Shan Wu, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's Day to you both.
Happy Valentine's Day.
You too.
And coming up,